I'll say that I'm really happy to introduce Erin, Michelle, Fred, Susanna, and Francine for this panel regarding doing a master's in co-op management, if this affect practice. So I'm going to let Erin speak now. Have a great plenary session.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is really a chance because a lot of times in ACE circles, we talk about practice, we talk about theory, what happens in formal education versus what happens in community organizing. And of course, those things intersect and overlap as well. So this is maybe the perfect community to bring this forward to say, when we take on an initiative like, offering a full-on master's program in co-op business, the Master Management Co-ops and Credit Unions program, does it make a difference for practice? Is it an exercise in theory? Is it an exercise in networking? Or does it matter for folks in terms of what they do in their applied work? So there have been folks that step forward from our student body, from our alumni, who have been doing something interesting out there in practice. And so we wanted to take time to highlight that. We set this up as a round. So sort of like a Q&A, we'll only be using slides at a couple points to share. So you'll be able to see our faces the whole time and hopefully add to the chat. If you have questions and that type of thing, we hope to have time at the end for discussion. But let's first start by hearing from our panelists, just in terms of telling us about yourself and your cooperative, so we have context for the rest of your sharing. Fred, did you want to start?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Fred. I work at the Northwest Cooperative Development Center here in Olympia, Washington in the Pacific Northwest in the US. And we are a largely federal grant funded co-op development center, working in all sectors and industries. So, worker, consumer, producer, multi-stakeholder, kind of take all comers as long as they want to democratically own and operate an enterprise. And then I specifically work mostly right now in our manufactured housing program. We help folks in manufactured housing communities purchase the land that their homes are on and operate it as a co-op. And then the co-op that I'm going to be talking about is actually the Olympia Food Cooperative. I'm a director. It's my third year on the board, and I'll be talking about OFC, it's worth mentioning, is democratically operated. It's a staff collective of more than 80 people, and they manage using full consensus decision making, which has some unique strengths and challenges. So I'll be talking a little bit about that. It's an interesting context.
Thank you, Fred. Over to Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm just finished my second year, actually, so I'm off for the summer, so I'm having a little bit of an applause, but I'm coming from Vancouver, and my co-op is Cooperative Housing Federation of British Columbia. So we are a co-op of housing co-ops. So all of our members are housing co-ops, and we represent just under 15,000 co-op households. And our mission and vision really speaks to really facilitating activities and initiatives that draws on the power of collectively uniting those households. With respect to advocacy, there's housing co-ops in British Columbia, the nonprofit ones have a contractual relationship with government, so negotiating land leases, rent subsidies, and so forth. But we also have business units, which are property management and also real estate development, and that's all part of one group. It's all part of the cooperative, and my job as the Chief Operating Officer is to oversee day-to-day operations and just making sure that all the three divisions are still aligning with the cooperative vision and mission and principles.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michelle. And over to Susanna.
Hi, everybody. I'm Susanna. I am an American currently living in Canada, and I graduated with a master's in the program in 2018. I grew up in Seattle and lived there until last year when my husband, who's Canadian, and I moved to Galiano Island just 2 hours before they closed the border on March 20th. It was very exciting. I'm currently serve on the board of the Cooperative Management Education Student and Alumni Co-op, and I also serve on the board of the East End Food Co-op in Vancouver, BC. But from 2013 to 2019, I was the marketing director at Central Co-op, which is a natural grocery cooperative on Capitol Hill that was founded as a consumer cooperative in 1978, and then converted to a solidarity model of worker and consumer ownership in 2015. And that was a really sort of really exciting transition to go through. But for decades, Central Co-op has placed a huge emphasis on being a stalwart supporter of local food suppliers, an ambitiously progressive employer, introducing a $15 an hour entry-level wage years in advance of the laws. And it has made it a point to really support other community organizations and initiatives that align with the values of the membership sort of over the course of the 40 plus years they've been around. So it's a really exciting co-op to be a part of.
Thank you. And what about Adam?
Hey everyone, my name's Adam Trott, and when I started the program in 2016, I was a member of Collective Copies, which is a worker collective print shop in Western Massachusetts with 2 locations. And I had been there for 10 years at the time. And I also worked for the Valley Alliance of Worker Cooperatives, which is in the same region, which is a co-op of worker cooperatives doing education, support, development, and legislation. During the program, I got a job at Shared Capital Cooperative, which is also a cooperative serving the United States nationwide to do lending with member-led capital. And I still work for the Valley Alliance.
Somehow your work week, there's 8 days in it. I don't know how you fit them in. So now that we've got everybody's voice in the room, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Erin Hancock. I'm the Education Program Manager for the International Center for Cooperative Management. And so back in 2002, some folks in the sector, mostly in Canada, the US, and the UK, were having conversations about what was needed in terms of education. And one of the things that came up was that, a lot of people are sort of seeking this MBA type education, and we're wanting that in the context of cooperatives because, we don't want to drift away from what is the core of the co-op model and also the opportunity and potential of the co-op model too. So then, of course, people need education to do that in the complexities of running a cooperative. And that's where the idea for our master's program came out of. And now we also do research in the center. We do short courses in executive education. We also offer a graduate diploma and a certificate program online part-time. All of our programs are designed for people who are working in the sector, financial and non-financial cooperatives alike, all over the world. And so we focus in on the master's program today and again, on the impact of that in people's practice. So, and I should say about myself too, I've been involved in the sector for a while. I used to work for the National Association in Education and Research here in Canada. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, on Mi'kmaq territory, and also to acknowledge that I serve on the board of the Bus Stop Theatre Cooperative and Nova Credit Union, as well as that Cooperative Housing Management Network co-op. So I find lots of folks in the sector have these multiple hats on. Once you get us started, you can't slow us down. So let's move on to the next question then. How did you come to pursue your education with St. Mary's? How did you land on doing a Master of Management in Co-ops and Credit Unions? We can start with you again, Fred.
Yeah, I mean, the short story is that Sonia kind of accosted me at an NCBA conference and said that I had to do it. But the long story is it took me about 16 years to complete a bachelor's degree. And I was in school for at least half of that time. I was working full time and was mostly working as a mechanic and a cook for all through my 20s, and thought I was going to start my own business, and then increasingly became sort of disillusioned with industry and private ownership. So I went back to school, finishing up my bachelor's. After I turned 30, I kind of rediscovered the cooperative model through a class from John McNamara, who is a graduate of this program, and then also went on to get his PhD at St. Mary's. And so I took his class, rediscovered the cooperative model. I had been trying to get jobs at food co-ops or like Arizmendi cooperatively owned food businesses, but the entire time, and it just kept not working out for me. So I'd always said, like, if I could get a job at a co-op bakery or a food co-op, I would just never leave, and that would be it for me. So it's kind of because that didn't happen, I ended up sort of falling backwards into the development world. So now I'm helping other people start their co-ops. And then, yeah, this program just seemed like the natural extension. I wanted to continue to deepen my understanding of the model and my ability to communicate about it to the folks that I worked with. And I don't speak Italian, so it was kind of this was the thing to do.
We're glad that we fit into that niche for you. Thank you, Fred. Okay, over to Michelle. How did you come about doing the master's program?
Yeah, I think most people's careers kind of meander, right? So I'm definitely focused on business and very much the people side of business, and watching the impact that your team can have on organizational, being effective. And then when I fell into the co-op world, which I've been working with co-ops for a good 10, 12 years before I got into this program, I realized that as a property management firm, as a social purpose real estate firm, we had a lot of management key positions that were really focused on those two industries. And co-ops are existing in two industries. That there's a co-op, just being a cooperative, and then there's the industry that they're in. And we're really, really heavy on the management point of view on there. So I was just evaluating where I could add value to the management team. And then I saw Erin at a CHF Canada conference, and then I signed up for the three-day session with 3 executive education, and that's when I met Danielle. And then he started talking about the co-op equilibrium and the balanced scorecard, and I just knew that this was something I absolutely had to do. I mean, it took me a good 2 years after that before I actually applied, but that was my own sort of nagging self-doubt in my head. But it was definitely that 3-day education with Erin and Danielle that just kind of, I was in a room with other co-ops, and I had just been in this lane of housing and housing co-ops, and there was so much more out there. So that's kind of my meandered story.
Sounds great. I can't believe that someone like you would have self-doubt about it. You're just such an engaged and bright person, but I'm not in your brain. Thank you, Michelle. And what about Susanna?
Well, when I was hired at Central Co-op, our CEO was named Dan Arnett. He's still named Dan Arnett, actually, but he's no longer the CEO. But when I was hired, he was the CEO at Central, and he was in the program. He's graduated from the program and really just really steeped in the St. Mary's world. And he was very, very encouraging of everyone on his leadership team to participate in the program. Just strategically, he could see that if he had a leadership team of folks who'd all been through the program, that really the cooperative would stand to benefit enormously in the long run. So he just really made sure that everyone on the team who agreed and wanted to participate had the opportunity to do the program. That's how I came to it.
Thank you. What about Adam?
So my answer to this question, I'm going to try to be brief, but it's probably the most important part, I think, for me, because I was so stubborn against it. I was a very reluctant student for my entire life. School was not necessarily something that I thought was the best thing for me. And until college, which I barely got into, it was not, I did not find it as a source of enjoyment or really something that was educating me the way I wanted to be educated. So I had a closed mind about this, and I got a job. I have been in food cooperatives in New York City. I had done a lot of union organizing and educational organizing. And when I got the job at Collective Copies, it opened up a lot of the world to me. I co-wrote a book with 2 other people about cooperatives in Western Massachusetts, focusing on worker co-ops, strengths and weaknesses. And when my friends, Urban and Suzette, who are wonderful people and very patient friends, said, "Hey, you should really try this program," maybe, Fred, similar to how Sonia went to you, I was very reluctant. And I thought it was just like a lot of time, and I didn't know how much I had, as far as like, I just wanted to have the most impact I could. So it took a lot of patience on behalf of the wonderful staff at the center that really made me see how important it was to check out. And when I did look at it, I realized that I was running into the same issues in my work at Collective Copies and at the Valley Alliance. And I'm just going to put a couple of things in the chat of the co-ops I Some I'm still working with and some I'm not. So you can check it out. And I realized that I was bringing a lot of limitations to the table. And that's what made me say, okay, if I'm going to take this seriously for what I want to do, I need to take this program. And I called Karen, and the rest is history. So it did take a long time. I mean, I think it was like a 6-year thing in between the time I knew about it and or more, and the time I actually enrolled. My biggest career regret is that I waited too long. So I'm happy to be talking about the program and to be here with you all.
Thank you, Adam. And for anyone who's just joined, I dropped the proposal with the speaker bios in. So just, the context where folks are speaking from. It's in the chat. Thank you, all of you, for that. It's so neat to see. Almost always what we find is that students who engage in our programs know somebody who has. So they've either heard it directly from them, or they found the program and then found out that somebody they knew had done it and go to them to validate. Is this a good idea? So far the jury has said yes. Okay, thank you for that. So in terms of implementing something impactful, these are the kind of narratives that we want to dig into today. So you did this sort of formal institution-based education, and how did that impact practice? So tell us a little bit about what it is that you did and what impact did it have for your cooperative or the wider sector. Fred, are you okay to start again?
Yeah, of course. So my project is still in process, and realistically won't get finished potentially even in the time, even if I get elected again and serve a second term. But what we're doing is, so as I mentioned before, Olympia Food Cooperative, OFC, it's a staff of over 80 people, 2 retail locations. It's democratically managed. They use full consensus decision making for large decisions, and then consensus decision making within smaller groups at the departmental or committee level. But it is a consumer cooperative. So we have a board of elected consumer members elected by the consumer membership. The staff collective, the workers do not have an ownership stake in the business. They do have one representative on the board. But it creates some interesting tension between the membership and the needs of the membership, and then the staff collective and the needs of the staff collective, and specifically in a situation where the staff collective is so empowered operationally, but doesn't necessarily have a ton of influence at the governance level. And so the project is trying to improve the communication basically between membership and the board and the staff collective, not because there's dysfunction, but just because we realized that sort of those two spheres were operating autonomously. And I had been aware of this issue even just as a member, but it wasn't until actually taking Daniel's class and learning about the co-op equilibrium framework that he's developed, and then also taking the classes with, I think Daphne Rickson was the first person who exposed me to it, but the idea of integrated reporting and a balanced scorecard. So what we're doing is we're not using exactly a balanced scorecard, but we're in the process of developing with board member and staff input a non-financial metrics that we can measure and hopefully improve the board and the membership's awareness of what's happening at the enterprise level, and also improve the ability for the staff collective to communicate what's going on operationally to the membership. So that the process is just beginning. And for me, it was sort of like I said, I was aware of these sort of structural tensions in the organization, did not have a way to explain to anybody what I was feeling. It was like my idea was totally inchoate. Until I took these courses and was exposed to these frameworks and these ideas. So the big thing for me was being able to take kind of what people had a sense of and put it in a container that was digestible, and then also being able to explain to 80 people, a highly independent staff collective of 80 people, why developing some more measurement systems would actually be beneficial to them, because in order to do that, while the board ostensibly has the ability to set policy, realistically, we have to get full consensus buy-in from the staff collective for any major initiative. So it was, yeah, for me, the frameworks and just the ability to explain to people the gaps that I saw in our organization.
Great, thank you. And Danielle, I've invited you if you want to drop the link to your book. I think a lot of people would benefit from reading Danielle's book here in the chat, available in French and English. Next, we have Michelle. Do you want to tell us something that you've taken on in your organization and the impact it's had so far?
Yeah, I have a couple, so I'll try not to go on too long. It's interesting that it was the same thing with Fred with the balanced scorecard as well. So I just back up a little bit. You said that you were trying to convince your board to get indicators. Our board knew that they wanted indicators, but they were like, I don't know. We were just like, what? We know what the profit is. We know what staff turnover is. We know how much we have in reserves and what we want to get to. I mean, what else do you want us to do? But they would. It's a really really forward thinking board. And luckily at that time, I think this is what's always happened for me in this program is right at some point in my work, it's just like literally I'm taking that course and I'm taking strategic analysis with Danielle. And we're exposed to the balanced scorecard from looking at some other cooperatives, and we're studying that. And then we're challenged in our assignment to create a balanced scorecard for our own cooperative. I mean, you can choose someone else's, but why would you? I mean, it's like a double whammy, right? You're doing something for your own co-op as well. So I think what really came out of that was the fact that, yes, we had indicators, but did we have the right indicators? And was it balanced in the context of members being people that are using the co-op, and then members as owners of the cooperative, and of course tying in the other indicators as well. What we knew how much education our staff, how much we spent on education staff dollars on staff, but how much on directors. That was equally as important. And that was really the context that we got out of the balanced scorecard. I presented it to our CEO, and then, the board they were so excited about it all. They really liked the fact that this business tool that wasn't too corporate. It was very, very focused on a cooperative, and they didn't feel that staff was just trying to make them into this big corporate conglomerate, because at that time we were really just growing in size and scope. And this really sort of brought home and highlighted what they were looking for, was that, yes, we're growing, yes, we're doing all these great things, but we're not losing the fact that we're a cooperative. And this balanced scorecard, it just resonated really well with them. And the other thing was the integrated finance framework. And I have to say about this program that when it came to financial management, I saw that there were two of them, and I was just groaning, because I'm more of a people person, and I was like, oh my God. But those were my favorite sessions, and really because it spoke to the narrative behind the numbers. The numbers were really great, but what did it actually say? So then, fast forward to taking financial management 2 with Maureen, and then we have a brand new treasurer, and he is not a CPA, and we've historically had a chartered professional accountants always in that role, and he's not. And he comes to me and says, okay, I want to know the numbers, but I don't want a whole bunch of numbers. It has to make sense to me. Like, what does it mean, right? So I'm doing this integrated this framework, and it just talks about, I think Daphne introduced it as well, should there be a separate reporting format or standard for cooperatives? And it just got me thinking, like, what could we do so that I could present these financial statements? And there were many, and we have different business units. So I just took that information and I made the numbers make sense. Like, this is how much we spent on staffing, but this is the ratio between the number of staff. This is the percentage of our revenue that we're spending on staffing, and just kind of putting, and then this is how it compares with the different business units. And this is why, this is our cash flow. Yep. This is when we're cash rich. This is when we have to dip into our line of credit, and just putting it in an integrated format to accompany those long, really, essential financial statements that he could just be pointed to later. I think that's a great takeaway that I took from the program.
Sorry, I was just adding a couple things to the chat. Thank you very much, Michelle. That's great. Yes, you never really know what you're in for. We're glad when it's good surprises. Like, oh no, a financial management course. Oh, wow, this is actually great. It's a little trick we play on people. Moving on now to Susanna. Go ahead.
Thanks. Hi. As a grocery store, as a grocery cooperative, for years, Central Co-op had sort of enjoyed just kind of this natural growth of customers. As people's interest in natural grocery sort of increased, the co-op experienced kind of a natural increase of business, and that was really fantastic. But then, sort of late 2000s, our conventional competitors got wind of this stuff called natural food, and they started selling the same stuff, and we saw sort of big natural stores opening up and really coming into the market, and suddenly we sort of found ourselves in a very competitive environment, which we had not really been so much in before that, in the 80s and 90s, when we were sort of in our younger years, and particularly in 2017, we were looking ahead at Central. We were looking ahead to really 3 major competitors opening up within a mile and a half of our store. So the neighborhood that we were in Seattle was very walkable. We had a lot of walking traffic. A lot of our neighbors shopped at the store. And so having 3 big stores, Whole Foods, we were anticipating New Seasons, and then also actually another cooperative was planning to open up nearby. And so we knew that we needed to really be making the case to our larger community about Central and why they should choose Central in an environment where you have all of these other places to go. Why would you want to come to this, sort of little, sort of very unique shop? And why go there instead of Whole Foods or something, a place you might be more familiar with? And we also knew at the same time that it was important for our local sort of politicians, our local legislators, to really understand the value of having a cooperative business as large and financially impactful as we were sort of in town. Like, why should our local legislators care as they're thinking about the zoning and what businesses they're courting for developments and things like that? Why should they care about a co-op versus a big investor-owned company, right? So we knew that we needed to tell the story of why, right? Why Central Co-op? Why should you choose to shop with us? Why should you choose to, think about maybe prioritizing a community-owned business when you're making decisions about development? We were really trying to answer this huge why question, sort of as I started work at the co-op, we started trying to capture some of these things along the lines of a balanced scorecard, really trying to think like, okay, what do we bring? Trying to present to people, okay, how do we do business and what makes us different in a way that people would find approachable. So I'm just going to share some of our early work with that. Where did it go? Let me see here. Sorry, it was right here when I was looking before. Here it is. Okay, so this is an example of some of the graphics that we put together. This first one on the left is from 2015, and the one on the right is from 2016. We were just trying to capture for our shoppers primarily, and our members, some of the things that we were doing that should make them feel proud to be a member of the co-op and to shop at the co-op. So you can see, donating $28,000 to local community organizations in 2014 that are entry-level wage, being, so we've got the average hourly wage of $21.18 at the co-op, supporting over 400 Washington state producers. So this, trying to call out these kinds of numbers, donating over $15,000 to food banks, just really showing, Central Co-op, we're doing awesome stuff here, right? But over, we got a lot of really positive feedback about these graphics. And we had them small so people could take them, and we had them big up on the walls, and we were using them in advertising and in the newsletters and just putting them everywhere. And a lot of people really liked these. A lot of people would stop me and say, Susanna, those are great. You need more of them. And that was really reassuring. But over the course of the program and over the course of my work and conversations with some different people, we really realized that having all of these sort of discrete pieces of information, while it was really sort of helpful and made people, sort of have a picture of what we brought to the community, what we were really missing was really what it adds up to, right? So that kind of like big picture, what do we bring? What percent, how do we do business really differently? What is the full impact of a dollar spent at the store? How much of that really is going back to the community? So we commissioned a third-party economic impact study to really dig in and analyze the economics of our co-op and tell us what all of these little pieces really added up to. And so we hired a group called Civic Economics, and they looked at all of our spending, all of our financials, and they came back with results that they described as jaw-dropping. So I'll just show you here the next slide. What this shows here, on the far right, you have a conventional chain grocery store. And then on the far left, you have Central Co-op. And then in the middle is sort of your average US co-op, just to sort of show kind of how co-ops do and then how Central Co-op does, even compared to the average US co-op. And so they found that 52 cents of every dollar spent at Central Co-op was staying in Washington State, versus 23 cents at the average conventional chain grocery. So we were able to really take this result and spread this far and wide. We shared the information through huge PR campaigns, a lot of member engagement, a lot of really successful outreach, impactful outreach to public officials, and more. Sort of did a whole big, campaign. And then a couple of years later, we actually did a follow-up study, which looked even more in depth and did, added sort of a local multiplier effect. And so we really were able to, have several of these, or two of these impact studies to show how we were doing over time. And then I'll just share this last one. We were able to take this. These are some of the graphics that we took out of the study. So when you shop at Central, more than half of every dollar stays in Washington. 20% of the money spent was being spent on Washington products, just trying to call out some of these larger things to really give people that sense of like, wow, Central Co-op really is an engine. It's not just a cool organization that's doing some funky stuff. We actually are having a big economic impact locally.
That's great. I love those visuals. Thank you. All right. Wow. Let's move on to Adam now. Do you want to tell us about what you did with your education and what the impact was? I mean, I know there are lots of examples. We could go on all day, but.
No, I don't think so. But I did want to start with showing that one of the cooperatives I was part of forming got support from Urban Kroll, who was taking the program and wrote his capstone about it. And I just dropped his report into the chat. So, we wanted to form the secondary cooperative for worker co-ops, and we had a lot of ideas on what we thought we would be doing. And we kind of didn't really know any of the context of what should be happening. We only knew a couple of examples in the United States, A lot of them were kind of defunct or just really more of a social club. And through the program, we learned about what Mondragon was doing, not just that it was out there, but hey, how technical was that surplus allocation? And we learned about what was happening in Italy, Montreal, Quebec, and these different places around the world. That was really inspiring to us. So I put that in the chat. I think it's a really powerful report. So since then, that was 2009. This is a version where we wrote an introduction in 2013. I was loosely aware with what Urban called the universe of what cooperatives are. And I think that they are obviously the best model. And what I wanted to do was to really research what cooperatives working together could do. I tip my hat to any cooperative that's working and surviving. But what's really exciting for me when I think about systemic issues, whether that's racial equity, violence, we want to talk about large economic systems, we want to talk about gender inequities, we want to talk about larger social issues. I think that the ability to have a dignified job that pays well and have a say in it is a huge part of any of those things. And what I think associations of cooperatives can do is provide support to those businesses to pursue those larger goals amidst the context of cutthroat competition and prioritizing profit instead. So I pursued this kind of track of research. I was lucky enough to have Sonia Novkovich be my advisor. And I worked on, I essentially worked with Sonia and people at the program throughout my time as a student. And I just want to say a lot of your work as a student in the program is working on supporting your cooperative. I wrote dozens of papers and posts about, hey, here's something we could really take advantage of, or let's figure out the SDGs. And there was just a workshop earlier on that. Let's make our statement, make our argument, and connect it to larger discussions. So what I was able to do through the program was to have this working paper series. My capstone turned into a working paper. And I think because Erin put it in the newsletter and said it was about co-op associations, it got picked up by NCBA, which is the National Cooperative Business Association, CLUSA, here in the United States. And they are the apex cooperative association. And through working with 10 associations in Canada and the United States, and this is hardly, we never thought this was a comprehensive study. This was just to really say, hey, what are associations doing? We always hear about Italy and Mondragon, which is great. They do some really great work. But what are we doing here that people can connect up with tonight and think about making a larger impact beyond their four walls? And again, that's a mindset I had to really look at myself, because I thought 10 years at a worker co-op and 5 at a food co-op on the finance committee, most on a finance committee, was all I needed to know. And that was not an appropriate view of myself. And what I wanted to say was, okay, so now I've realized how much I was missing by not paying attention to the credit unions I was a part of and showing up more. In any event, what we did with this research was to say, oh yeah, do you want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Let's talk about what associations are doing, because it's really powerful. I'm going to put 2 things in the chat to sort of support that. But NCBA CLUSA took a lead before, this was in like 2017, 2018 on the inclusive economy. This was their main theme for their messaging. And I'll just say one of my favorite examples of an association is the Federation of Southern Cooperatives Land Assistance Fund, which stemmed out of the civil rights movement in the Southeast of the United States over 50 years ago. They've got housing co-ops, farmer co-ops, individual members, educational institutions, educational kitchens and farms. It's an incredibly inspiring story. And the papers that I dropped in there do mention them a little bit, although it won't give it justice. It's a little technical. So just to kind of wrap that up, what I found was that my interest, my curiosity in this tiny little secondary co-op that I was involved in up here or down here, wherever you are, in Massachusetts and Vermont propelled me to understand these much larger concepts, including nationwide, rural electric programming, or Black farmers retaining land in Southeast United States. And I think those are the issues that cooperatives are built to address. And using the cooperative association model is something that is really something that keeps me motivated every day. And our program is one method of that. So it's a very flexible model. So I can talk more about that, but thank you for giving me a moment to share that.
Thank you, Adam. And I encourage everybody to save the chat as well, because there's now a lot of links in there of reading that you'll want to do for sure. Thank you. So some of you have already spoken to this, but if anybody wants to name any real explicit, specific examples of what either the course you were in or the content at the time or the reading, or specifically what it was that sort of allowed this practical initiative to take shape. If anybody wants, some of you again did mention it, but if anybody wants to say more, go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, I would say in terms of what about the coursework really influenced this project for me. Boy, I mean, obviously, so much of the work around the scorecards and really thinking about how to measure the work that we do as co-ops was so important, and important because I think one of the things that the program showed over and over for me was how important it is for cooperatives just internally to understand what it is about their business that is different from conventional counterparts. Danielle Cote talks over and over again about isomorphism and this problem of sort of cooperatives eventually just starting to look exactly like their competitors, because they sort of lose track of how being a cooperative can bring so much value to both the business and the community around them. And so having the background that was provided by the education leading into this project, it really just made it a lot easier to our CEO. This is why we really need to do this project, and here's why. So I would say just really knowing that co-ops need to know themselves differently. But it also really, the program also showed me how important it was for the larger community and for public officials to really understand. One of the things that some other countries have that I think the United States doesn't have is a real sort of support network on a government level for the cooperative business sector. And just trying to help our city officials and our state officials and then our national officials as well really understand, okay, so here's a really discrete example of a cooperative that is doing great things in the community. And you can take what we're doing and extrapolate that to all kinds of cooperatives across all sectors. And I heard from a lot of folks that I spoke to that it was really helpful for them in just getting to understand the business model in a different way. And so that was, really, the program really helped me see the value of doing that as well, and trying to build understanding with legislators. And then just, I think the program also really informed me in helping me hone our approach to the studies that we did in terms of the questions that we needed answered, and then how we communicated the impact to our members in the greater community. So I think I can tie all of those things back to the coursework.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Wow. Did anyone else want to speak? Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, I mean, I can echo pretty much what everybody was saying, but especially what Michelle was saying about, it's almost felt on like a day-to-day basis that we're studying stuff that, like, I'm in meetings and I'm saying, oh, I just read a paper about that last night, so I know what we should, I can have some good recommendations. But specifically, like Michelle said, yeah, the financial management classes where I actually had a pretty good understanding of how to read and interpret financial reports and do, forecasting and whatever. So I was not, I was maybe arrogantly not expecting to learn so much in those courses. And then the opposite was true because it was actually, it was a lot deeper than just how do you read a balance sheet or whatever. And so specifically, yeah, that integrated reporting, the concept of integrated reporting and the balanced scorecard tool were things that as I was reading about them, we were having conversations at the board level about maybe we should develop metrics. We're not sure what's going on. So I was able to immediately take what I had learned and say, why don't we try this? And then like Susanna said, articulate why this, what sounded to some people like a potentially complicated and lengthy and overly formal process would actually have value, even in sort of a collective environment. Similarly, the studying the equilibrium framework in our strategic something class with Danielle was was really good for me. And again, to echo what Susanna was just saying, because it helped me to, one, be able to articulate what we mean when we say co-op difference, and two, it really helped me, also stuff that I've read from Sonia and in the sort of philosophy classes and history class with Stephen Dutcher as well. It really helped me get out of this mindset of sort of like co-ops in a defensive crouch, co-ops sort of, having to feel like you're, yes, this can work. It's not always perfect or whatever, but we can do it. And really start to see that, and also I think, and I run into this with my development clients too, this idea that sort of like, well, we're a co-op and we want to be a co-op, but we can't be too much of a co-op because we need to survive in the market. And actually being able to show sort of like empirical, research and case studies that demonstrate, no, in fact, the strength of a cooperative is being a cooperative, that, having your operations aligned with your principles and values is like good business, as well as being, the kind of the right thing to do on an ethical and moral level. So being able to articulate that more clearly, but also being able to literally say like, look, someone with a PhD wrote a big paper that says what I'm saying, has been very helpful to get people to listen to me. And then I'll also say too, just like Adam, what I find most exciting and motivating and where I put a lot of my attention now is in this idea of networking. So like co-ops like Michelle's are a big inspiration to me, this, secondary and tertiary co-ops. And, like Susanna said, starting to think really more proactively about building these networks and getting these networks engaged with regional government to get, real support. So my thinking about co-ops has expanded dramatically. My the amount that I feel like I know has shrunk dramatically. But yeah, on a day-to-day basis, I haven't had a single course where I didn't feel like this is directly applicable to the work that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. So that's been my experience.
Thank you, Fred. Wow. This is all very exciting, I have to say. Michelle, did you want to speak to that too?
No, I would just say that the networking, I'll just build on what Fred said. Absolutely, the networking. It just opened up. I mean, it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's not until you're entrenched in either the studies or just meeting with your cohorts and learning about their cooperative, it makes you a better leader at your cooperative. And for me, I might have just had a little bit of tunnel vision that, cooperative housing, because in the province of British Columbia, the largest sector of cooperatives is housing. So, it's kind of learning that there was so much more to that. I think that's a really big part, and you can't really tie it to a particular module that you studied, but it was just you were forced to think outside of that. So the networking was big for me, but really echo, I think I said it, like literally you've got an assignment and it's applied to work that week in some component of your studies and your work life. There was an invisible barrier, and if you were strategic enough, you could actually do, which I might have done on a couple occasions, this is being recorded, a double whammy where you've actually based a lot of your homework or an assignment on something that you would have had to do for work anyways. So.
That's not a cheat. That is smart. That's how we want it to be. We don't want to feel like the education is off in left field. I think that's just smart. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, and just like Adam said, the same for me. I've taken a number of papers and then just sort of slightly repurposed them and maybe like softened my criticisms of the organization I'm evaluating, and then presented them as like, here's a report as a consultant. Here's for you to do stuff with. So that was how I got support for the balanced scorecard reporting idea. Was actually it was just a paper that I had written for class that I cleaned up a little bit and shared. And that was enough to communicate to people the strength of the idea. So,
Thank you, Fred. I see, William, you have your hand up, but I wonder if we can do just the next round, and then we'll get to questions. So, I mean, beyond the sort of related to the co-op, related to your work type of or volunteering realm, what about personally? What did the education do for you personally so far that you've noticed? Fred, you want to start?
Sure. It's making me emotional. So I was when I came back to school, I was really just like a disgruntled wage worker that was sort of totally disillusioned with working in food, which had been my passion for a long time. So for me, sort of getting involved in the cooperative movement and coming to understand that the co-op model is not sort of like this fringe thing for a handful of bakers to survive, but is actually this really potentially transformative thing for on a global level. It's kind of it's like giving me purpose, really, and made me feel a lot more connected to just in general to the world. I was, after sort of 12 years in the restaurant mines, very dispirited in general, and so getting involved with the co-op movement and meeting all these people that have done such great things, and getting to do work that is like completely aligned with my own values, it's been like completely transformative for me. So that's been my experience.
Yay! This is your community. I love hearing that, Fred. Thank you. Wow, and probably not dissimilar to some other folks' experience here on the webinar today too. Michelle, did you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah, I think confidence is the word I would use, in addition to credibility, and it's the confidence is just a lot more intrinsic than it was before. And I mean, I think back. I mean, it's been building. It's very much meandering, but I think back to 2020, which was just such a tumultuous year. And I'm in a position of leadership at my cooperative, but I'm the only person of color working from home, feeling isolated and not understanding that my peers understand what's going on, and not seeing any sort of reaction from my cooperative. In fact, the conversation's not even starting. So 2 parts, I put on my people hat and focusing on how are people feeling, but realizing that that there's a level of discomfort in my peers that are not my skin color, that are a lot lighter skin color, and it's not that they don't want to do anything, they just have no idea what to do, how to react, and me being able to have a voice and just saying, what are you guys going to do about it? This is what we should be doing. This is why we should be doing. This is reminding us of our purpose. And you can't just do it like just send out a blanket statement and that's the end of the world. That's not what it's about. We have to do something, and just sort of like look at the mirror, people. Can you tell me 100% that the way that we operate, the way that people get into housing co-ops is absolutely 100% racially equality, like there's equality in that? Can you say that? Because that's not what is coming out from our members. That's not what our members in housing co-ops are saying. They're saying that they're not even being allowed. And then bold enough to say, I tried to get into a housing co-op twice and they wouldn't let me in. So, and just having the courage to say that, I mean, I got back to them. I work for a co-op, so there you go. But, and being able to laugh about it, right? Not take it so seriously, but it's just like, I am living proof that there are these systemic barriers, and not only to people with different color skin, people with different mobility issues, people with different religion. Like in our housing co-ops, there were so many, you know, we meet on Saturdays. And this is when our board meetings are. And if you can't have a board meetings on Saturday, then you can't be on the board. And not realizing that you're excluding people that maybe practice their religion on Saturdays, you know? So getting people to shift their mindset, I think this program gave me the confidence to speak up about it and make a few people uncomfortable.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's the nature of bold conversations. Is they will occur as uncomfortable to some people, but I suppose change never happened without some of that. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to give Susanna, then Adam, a moment to speak to this, but also to address some questions that came up, and maybe we can extend the session for a few minutes after if people are interested to stay. But let's see if we can do that. Susanna, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be as brief as I can, but I think, you know, for me, confidence was also a big thing for me from the program. When I started at the co-op, I didn't have a deep co-op background. I sort of personally was involved with co-ops here and there just as a member, but I didn't really have, I wasn't steeped in, you know, the cooperative business model at all. And I was working with a team of people who had various different, very strong opinions about what a co-op was and what a co-op should be doing and how a co-op should be operating and we're a co-op, so it needs to be this, and we're a co-op, so it needs to be that. And everybody was coming to it with a completely different angle. One of the things that Dan said to me when he was really, you know, talking to me about the program was, and what actually convinced me to do the program finally was, he said, Susanna, doing this program will make you 300% better at your job, because you will have a deeper level of understanding of the cooperative business model, and you'll have confidence to bring, you know, to really like present, you know, what it is we are actually doing and why we're doing it, not only to the membership, but also to your team. And so that was huge. And really made it possible for me to say, you know, some co-ops do that, but not this co-op, right? Or some co-ops do that, but we're doing this in a way that, you know, really, I think helps people really understand our purpose in a different way. So that was a huge part of it. Also, the networking has been just enormous, just being able to connect with people all over the country, all over the world, in a whole variety of sectors. Hear how people are solving similar problems. Hear what the exciting things that people are doing that we can borrow from. That's just been enormous. Just the people that meet have just been just inspiring, and so that's been a really huge part.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Adam.
At the risk of assuming, mine was a lot like Fred's. And I'm thankful for the difficult conversations that I was able to be a part of. So I'd like to cede the rest of my time to questions if we can.
Thanks, Adam. All right. So I appreciate it, first of all, to acknowledge all the panelists for your making time today, and beyond that, for doing that work that is sometimes hard and sometimes cumbersome, and for taking on a program while still doing a million other things in your lives because you believe in the potential to do even more, be even more effective, or contribute even more to your organizations and the wider co-op economy. I mean, I'm impressed with every single student who comes through the master's program. So, you know, congratulations and thank you for doing that on behalf of the sector, really. So I'm looking at the chat here. Does anybody want to, William, should we add you as a panelist and you can voice your question? We should be able to. There you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I retired as president of the CHS Foundation in 2016. And prior to that, for the 20 years, and literally from the beginning of this program, we had a few conversations with St. Mary's. Our major funding area was education about cooperatives. And I don't recall that we actually ever funded anything If we didn't, it's because it would have been because it wasn't quite a fit for us. And we only during my later years there started funding in Canada. We provided a 3-year grant to the center in Saskatchewan. Now, and I'm retired from there, but serving on a number of foundation boards and others, primarily the Ralph Morris Foundation. And one of the things that we've been doing this year in the pandemic is evaluating our programs. And basically what we were doing was providing scholarships to attend cooperative education events, education programs, as well as some graduate and law school scholarships. I think Adam is a recipient. Is that correct, Adam? Yeah. So we're trying to take a look at all of this. And one of the things that, two quick points. One is I'm really impressed with what St. Mary's is doing and how they've progressed. I'm trying to find ways to explain that to other people, such as on our board. But I also think that, the pandemic and the hybrid learning models and all of that is changing things so much. Some of you may have heard Alex Stone talk about how Cooperation Works is doing. So just because I know we're probably short on time here, but if any of you are interested in having a conversation with me or Ralph Morris about some of the questions I have, I'd be certainly welcome to do that. Or you can go through Erin too. But one of the questions I have is how can we help provide more financial assistance to students? And we're trying to modify our model. Are there alumni? Do you have any kind of alumni group? I was really pleased to see that Shared Capital, a neighbor of ours here in the Twin Cities, is a sponsor this year. But I'm really interested in figuring out how we can get the business community, if you will, whether it's co-ops or non, but it might even be just people who are interested in innovations in higher education and especially the content area, which there are a lot of people who are very interested in co-ops, but they don't know they are. We have to explain to them that all the stuff we hear people talking about, equity and justice and all of that, hey, we know where you're coming from, but don't rule out the cooperative one. I'll quit talking. By the way, when my hand went up, I was trying out that mouse thing somebody suggested. It's accidental, but here I am.
Thank you, William. I'm going to let Susanna actually speak in a moment. I just wanted to acknowledge that we are at the hour. If some people do need to leave, I want to thank you for being here with us today and stay in touch. I put my email in there, and managementstudies.coop is our website. We do free webinars. We do short courses. We have publications like some of the ones Adam linked today. So there's lots of stuff to pick up, even if you're not thinking about going deep into education too. And thank you all. And I'll turn it over to Susanna to answer the question about the alumni cooperative and share a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, so I'm on the board of the Cooperative Management Education Student and Alumni Cooperative. Every time I say it, I think we should probably try to find a shorter name. But we are a cooperative of current students and alumni, and I think we've got over 60 members at this point, and we've been primarily engaged in sort of networking and trying to share knowledge and information and experience within the group. So we have a regular monthly meetup online, a Zoom meetup we've been doing for the last probably now, where it'll be just people just come and bring questions, bring conversation topics, challenges that they have, questions that they have, things that they're seeing in the news. We'll just sort of have an open discussion about it. But we also have been using it as an opportunity for people to share their research. People will come and present their capstones. And so we get to kind of have the benefit of kind of building up our, building up our shared knowledge base, I guess. It's been a really fun thing to sort of be a part of and be a part of growing. So we've talked a little bit about expanding our reach and expanding the benefit that we bring. And so been sort of trying to offer more is definitely one of the things we've got on our plate.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to respond to? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Did anyone else want to say anything in response to some of the things that William brought up?
Yeah, I just want to thank Mr. Nelson for a life of service and everything that Ralph K. Morris did for me. And I do think that one of the reasons why ACE is important is because we're pulling these resources together in front of people so you can make the connections. And it's not always easy. And I would love to have a further conversation about how we could maybe take advantage of more opportunities in that venue. It's wonderful.
Would it be possible for me to participate in that alumni group meeting sometime? I'm assuming you do it virtually, maybe to pick up on this discussion. Susanna?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah.
'Cause
Erin, can you connect us?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Great. Well, we're about to close. Any final words from any of the panelists here?
This is maybe neither here nor there, but I did want to call out that in my own development work and doing the training and education and technical assistance, we've also found that actually moving online has we thought it was going to reduce our efficacy, and in a lot of ways it's improved it. So being able to get a lot more people to a training at once, and so after we kind of onboarded clients to using the tech, we've actually found that doing the digital training sessions has been really effective, and we're going to continue to do that even as things start opening back up. So I just wanted to call that out.
Thanks. Any other final remarks? Okay, great. Well, thank you all.
I have one.
Oh, please go ahead.
I just want to say that if anybody attending this session is at all on the fence about the value of the program or participating in it, I would be happy to speak with anybody about it personally. For me, it was a fantastic experience. You will not get an unbiased opinion, and just the program was just so impactful and a positive experience. And so I just want to say thank you to the institution. Thank you, Erin. It was a really just fantastic thing to be a part of, and I'm happy to be here to talk about it. So thanks.
Thank you. And I think that you all certainly shine as leaders in the co-op community, and certainly we count ourselves very lucky that you're sort of ambassadors and people out there that are, carrying the torch for the center as well, because we're all diehards. We want this co-op economy to grow. We want people to be equipped, and it's really incredible to see when it plays out in ways like how you're all living it out. So I want to thank you all. I want to hand it back over to Edward now with ACE. Close us out.
Yes, thank you very much for all the panelists. It's been great, and hearing all your stories was really inspiring. Seeing Fred almost tear up. Speaking about his experience, I almost want to enlist in the school. I thought I was done. I did like 10 or 12 years of university. I thought I was done. It's growing on me. So thank you all for being here, and see you around.
Thank you.
And thanks to Erin for pulling this together.
Yes.
Herculean effort.
Yeah, right. You guys are so easy to work with.
No.
Thank you.